This year marks the 10th anniversary of Chinese President Xi Jinping's globe-spanning Belt and Road Initiative. Under this project, China has worked with more than 100 countries and spent $1 trillion. However, some countries are struggling to repay loans given by China to fund their infrastructure projects. And critics say this leaves them vulnerable to a debt trap. One such country is Sri Lanka, which has been branded the poster child for China's so-called debt trap diplomacy. But is it really the case? Sri Lanka, an island nation of 22 million people, majority of whom live here in Colombo, the country's capital. While things appear almost normal now, just 1 year ago it was a very different story. As protesters demonstrated and rallied against the government for months, culminating in the ousting of then-President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. What sparked it? Shortages of food, fuel, and medicine as the nation faced its worst economic crisis in decades. The government blamed the COVID-19 pandemic for it, but many experts say it was caused by the Rajapaksa administration's economic policies, which caused the country to default on its foreign debt obligations. And China was its largest bilateral creditor.
To put all things into perspective, one is the poor public finance management. That has been happening for many decades, and Sri Lanka could enjoy or could live with a poor public finance management before the country became a middle-income country, where Sri Lanka had a lot of access to the what you call a concessional loans. But access to such declined after around 2000, and then Sri Lanka had to find alternatives to borrowing, where Sri Lanka went to China and also international capital markets. So things got very difficult. And around 2020, 2022, it came to a point where Sri Lanka couldn't take it anymore. So that's the crux of the matter.
Sri Lanka became an example of what excessive borrowing can do to vulnerable countries. But in the years since, the country secured an agreement from the International Monetary Fund, and the Sri Lankan rupee has stabilized. Overseas remittances and tourism figures are also on the rise.
1 year after the country's worst economic crisis since its independence, we're going to find out whether things have gotten better for people.
Nestled in the lanes of Colombo, I stopped by a business belonging to motorcycle spare part dealer Sri who says things are better now than they were just 7 months ago.
සෑහෙන දුරට බැංකු වලට එහෙම අපි ඉතින් මේ ලෝන්ස් දාලා තමයි ව්‍යාපාර කරගෙන යන්නේ. ගොඩක් අමාරු නා. දැන් ඉතින් අපිට ටිකක් තත්ත්වයක තියෙනවා.
My next stop is Peta Market, one of the country's busiest commercial areas, where wholesale, retail markets and other commercial institutions are located. Everybody is busy buying or selling something. I make my way to the heart of the market, where daily staples of every kind are available.
Every day is a Sri Lankan main food, that's a dal.
So every day Sri Lankans eat this particular dal?
Yeah.
Can you tell me the price of this dal?
This is a prices to 400 rupees per kilo.
400 rupees per kilo?
Per kilo. This is a dal is a small size. This is a 295. It's a small size.
So last year, how much was the price of this dal?
550.
550.
Yeah.
Did you have a lot of people buying this dal last year when it was 550?
No. Last year got this price.
So people bought this one instead?
So price is too hard, no?
Over in the town of Negombo, about 40 kilometers north of Colombo, locals also say that while the country appears to be out of the woods, prices of goods are still very high, but incomes have not caught up.
Now main thing, people don't have money. Now they don't spend money for unless things. So they spend money for very useful things. So at that reason, our business is not like essential things.
So what they want to do, they will come. So this is essential for the school girls.
To tie ribbons.
Tied, yes, hair. So they used to buy this, and other than like this wool bands. So these are the things now we are selling.
And before?
Before we sell this like imitations. Our main part is imitation.
It was the main business.
Main business, yes.
The rising costs have also pushed more people into poverty. According to the World Bank, Sri Lanka's poverty rate almost doubled from 13.1% in 2021 to nearly 25% last year, an addition of 2.5 million poor people, and it could jump to 27.4% this year, something which the new president, Ranil Wickremesinghe, will have to address. But as the geopolitical competition in its neighborhood heats up, Sri Lanka is also finding itself in a delicate balancing act between India and China. Last year, at the height of Sri Lanka's economic crisis, India, its giant northern neighbor, stepped in to offer support, providing about $4 billion in rapid assistance. This as New Delhi frets about China's growing clout in its neighborhood. And Sri Lanka only received its $2.9 billion bailout package from the IMF after Beijing, its biggest creditor, offered crucial debt restructuring assurances.
Competition is very good, you know. Competition is very good. But at the end of the day, what we want is, as Sri Lankans, we want our country to prosper and our people to be very happy.
But observers say many expected China to have done more.
During the time of the default last year, there was a lot of anticipation that China will come to our aid and provide us with debt moratoria and other types of instruments which is provided to Zambia and so on. That did not happen in Sri Lanka. And China has wanted to cut a separate deal on the debt for Sri Lanka. And I hope Sri Lankan politicians and policymakers will take note of that. That China will be very happy to give us money at 6%, as they did in the Hambantota port project. But when we cause problems on our own, such as the default and linked to external factors like COVID as well, China takes a commercial view of these things, as a commercial creditor does.
Data from Boston University shows that China has spent over $240 billion bailing out countries from their Belt and Road Initiative debts between 2008 and 2021. This includes countries like Argentina, Pakistan, and Ukraine. And this, coupled with a slowing economy at home, could have curbed Beijing's appetite for risk abroad. Moreover, China might not have wanted to be seen as supporting an increasingly unpopular government. But now that the worst of Sri Lanka's economic crisis appears to be over, it's full steam ahead for the various Belt and Road projects in the country, though some are still struggling. Sri Lanka, located just south of India, shares not only close trade relations with its giant neighbor, but also ethnic and religious ties. In recent years, however, it's been caught in a power tussle between India, China, and the West, due to its strategic location at the crossroads of busy shipping routes.
Sri Lanka's location is its advantage. A shipping vessel looking to go to Europe will take 4.5 days less to get there if it were to leave from Colombo compared to if it were to leave from Singapore, for example, which is a major shipping hub.
Under the leadership of former President Mahinda Rajapaksa, who ruled the country from 2005 to 2015, Sri Lanka strengthened ties with China at the expense of India. And large-scale Chinese investments poured into the country, as it emerged as a key node in Beijing's Belt and Road Initiative. From roads to ports and airports. But over time, certain projects have fueled debate, some more than others, on whether they have been truly beneficial for Sri Lanka. Some have even been dubbed white elephants, adding to Sri Lanka's debt. The Hambantota port, located in the Rajapaksa family district in the south, is at the forefront of these debates. Opened in 2010, the $1.3 billion port was built using debt from Chinese state-controlled entities. It was expected to relieve pressure on the Colombo port and provide services to detouring ships. And there were even plans for the small, sleepy coastal town to be transformed into a thriving metropolis that can rival Colombo. But just 6 years later, in 2016, the port was unable to generate sufficient revenue to meet its loan obligations.
It's close to the southern sea lane, but the ships still have to come and you need the infrastructure there. And it takes a very long time to build the infrastructure. And I think that was underestimated. And probably the geostrategic point was also underplayed here, where Sri Lanka, I think, has kind of annoyed India by allowing control over the port, succeeded to China. The fact that Hambantota port was under Chinese management has worried many players, particularly in India and others. And it has not necessarily brought on short-term benefits for Sri Lanka.
In 2017, Sri Lanka handed over a 70% stake of the port to China on a 99-year lease, sparking outrage at the time. Critics accused China of engaging in debt trap diplomacy. This is where it swamps poor countries with so much debt that they cannot repay their loans and must surrender control of strategic assets. But others argue that the view is too simplistic.
And I have been in various government committees over the last 10 years, and I'm kind of closer to the facts that yes, China is the largest bilateral creditor. I believe that there's about 11 billion owed to bilateral creditors, of which a little bit above 5 billion is owed to China. But our debt issues, because out of our total debt, about 55% of it is domestic debt. And the rest is external debt. So we have excessive amount of debt that it has been estimated that our public sector debt, which is the central government debt, plus the SOE, plus the central bank, is 128% of GDP, one of the highest for a middle-income country like us.
Debt trap or not, China is the largest investor in Sri Lanka today. Reports say it has funding and investment of nearly $15 billion in the country, and part of this is funneled towards the Mattala Rajapaksa International Airport, which is located near the Hambantota port. This was to be the country's #2 air transport hub, supporting Sri Lanka's main airport. But today, it's widely considered to be a commercial failure, and it's been dubbed the world's emptiest airport.
Even at this very moment, there's not a single passenger here, just airport staff. The airport is able to handle a capacity of 1 million passengers per year. From December 2022 until July 2023, the airport handled just a little over 67,000 passengers.
But Beijing's investments aren't just limited to infrastructure projects. Over in Colombo, Sri Lanka and China signed the Lotus Tower Agreement in 2012 to build the highest broadcast tower in South Asia. Its elevator is the fastest in the country, taking 46 seconds to reach 290 meters high.
I just felt my ears pop.
Built at an estimated cost of $113 million, $88 million came from a loan from China, while the Sri Lankan government paid the rest of the bill. In 2022, annual revenue was estimated to stand at just a little over $8 million, far short of expectations. But with tourist activity resuming again, the tower has received at least 1 million visitors, and its management is optimistic that tourism could turn things around and provide an income boost.
So how we can generate revenue in terms of what can we bring back to the community and how can we uplift the place up. So we came up with a concept where we commercialize everything in terms of, from the original concept for the broadcasting tower, we saw a huge potential to attract local and the foreign visitors.
A far bigger and more important Chinese investment lies just around the corner, on the edge of Colombo's business district. The port city Colombo is funded under the Belt and Road Initiative at a cost of $1.4 billion, and it's intended to be a world-class city for South Asia. Like the Hambantota port, 65% of the 178-hectare area of saleable reclaimed land will be held on a 99-year lease by a Chinese majority state-owned company. Earlier this year, Sri Lanka's aspiration to become a major logistics hub in the region took a leap forward with the launch of a project to build the largest commercial and logistics complex in South Asia in the port of Colombo with an investment of $392 million. China Merchants Port Holdings holds a 70% stake, while Sri Lanka Ports Authority and Access Engineering hold a 15% stake each in the venture. Construction is set to begin in the coming months, with a target completion by 2025. And this, along with another project with India's Adani Group at the Colombo port, are expected to revolutionize the current shipping landscape in Sri Lanka, turning it into a leading hub terminal in South Asia.
The latest terminal that we on the public-private partnership that we're having, that is coming in, is the Adani managed or being developed a terminal which is called the Colombo West International Terminal. So the cooperation with the Chinese and Indians have been splendid. Of course, as far as geopolitics is concerned, the Port of Colombo has been having perfect relations with the Chinese, with the Indians, and we had no problem at all. So 2025, these two projects will be completed. Then the whole of Port of Colombo will have a capacity of about 14 to 50 million TEUs per annum by 2025.
But it's not just the Chinese and Indians who want a slice of the pie. The United States and even France are now looking to bolster their ties with Sri Lanka as part of their growing interest in the Indo-Pacific. Chinese President Xi Jinping's flagship foreign policy program, the Belt and Road Initiative, has extended its reach around the world, 10 years since it was launched. A report by Shanghai's Fudan University showed that around 100 deals worth over $43 billion were signed in the first 6 months of this year, $8 billion more than in the same period last year, most of it in Africa and Latin America. And in Sri Lanka, the initiative also appears to have regained momentum as the country emerges from its worst economic crisis in decades. That's caught the eye of not just India, but also the United States, which has been extending its outreach in the Indo-Pacific region. This as concerns about China's presence and activities in Sri Lanka and the wider Indo-Pacific region gain traction in the US.
Sri Lanka's position here in the Indo-Pacific, its maritime lanes, its shipping lanes, make it a very critical country. We support a sovereign, prosperous, democratic Sri Lanka. That means it decides for its own how its relationships are open and mutually beneficial with China and with every country. And so when we look at the Indo-Pacific framework, we support a free and open, rules-based international order. If any country abides by those principles, and I think Sri Lanka really looks to make sure that those are mutually beneficial relationships, then it could be prosperous and develop those relationships separately with each country.
Does the U.S. feel that it is engaged in some sort of a power play?
Well, the United States wants a strong partnership with Sri Lanka. That is our #1 goal. There's nothing more important for me as the U.S. ambassador here to see a democratic, prosperous, sovereign, strong Sri Lanka stand up for its own, prosper, make sure its people also prosper. And that's why I say it's at such a crossroads right now. In addition to the economic reforms, the very tough reforms that are being taken, and as Sri Lanka also looks towards the next steps of debt restructuring, we were fully supportive, working through the Paris Club to make sure that there is a comparable, equitable treatment of all its creditors.
The Paris Club is an informal group of creditor nations, including the US, Japan, UK, and other advanced economies, and they formally supported debt restructuring for Sri Lanka. China isn't part of the Paris Club, but it's also backed Sri Lanka's debt restructuring plan. In June, Sri Lankan Foreign Minister Ali Sabri held talks with his then Chinese counterpart, Qin Gang, on the future trajectory of bilateral ties. An official readout of the meeting between the two leaders quoted Chin calling for promoting the joint construction of high-quality BRI projects.
China's investment is very, very important because the countries like Sri Lanka need investment. In 2009, when we defeated LTTE and brought peace to this country, we were in need of massive investment. And going forward for the next phase of our development is growth-oriented. Growth means somebody needs to put money into it. That means investment. So I think amongst the major players right now in the world, China has a hefty pocket. They are waiting for investment. We are part of strategic part of their BRI initiative. So for us, Chinese investment are important and we look forward for that investment.
How concerned are you that China's proposed BRI initiative has been used as sort of a tool to create debt traps for its recipient countries?
No, I don't think so. What are they going to achieve out of the debt trap? You know, if you put your money into a country for investment, obviously they want returns. So if you want return, you want to see that that country succeeds. So that is where it is important for Sri Lanka to take that right call right now in taking those very important investment decisions. I think Sri Lanka is very clear right now. We will no longer go and borrow money. What we are asking is for investment, partnership, opportunities to grow together. So I think we have learned that lesson during the last because of this crisis.
Today, Sri Lanka is still working to restructure its $83 billion in debt, both domestic and external. And despite claims of debt trap, which Sri Lanka's government has rejected, the country clearly welcomes more cooperation and investments from China. But as more suitors come wooing, Sri Lanka could find itself spoilt for choice, and its strategic location in the Indian Ocean could help it turn around its fortunes.